So, how is my Kaspa journey going? How is the study proceeding? Am I getting somewhere? Yes, I think so. And I want to start to talk about the consensus protocol of Kaspa. But I realized that since it's a very complex thing, maybe we need a little bedtime story before we go on. Are you ready? Hi everyone and welcome to another coffee. We are still proceeding in this summer, almost ending summer, Kaspa journey, and I'm getting close to being able to show you the consensus mechanism of Kaspa. But before we get there, I realized that probably we need some lightweight introduction to the subject, and this is usually done via an analogy, which is basically a story that helps you to prime the concepts before diving in deeply into that. So like a general overview, very simple, very funny most of the times, which is absolutely not correct. It's not precise. I had the pleasure and the chance to have my video review by Shai himself. He's been looking at every single detail and explaining how to explain better the detail in it, and it was marvelous. The thing is, this is just an analogy, a very simple explanation, so it will be of course wrong if you look at things black and white, but it's very useful to try to set down some basic concepts and to build upon those and correcting things along the way. So let's look at this Kaspa analogy. Kaspa has already a very used analogy that I hear all the time, but I think it's lacking some precision and it's lacking some useful information. The usual analogy that you hear when talking about Kaspa and the ghost dog and the block dog instead of the blockchain is that you can see a normal blockchain like a street with one lane with all the cars in line in that lane, while in the block dog you have like a super highway with 8 or 12 parallel lanes and all the cars are going through those parallel lanes. Okay, I think it's very useful, but at the same time it's lacking a lot of information, it's lacking a lot of details. For example, it suggests that somehow it may look like a multiple parallel blockchains, which is not true, that all the cars are stuck in their own lane, which is not true. There is some sort of ordering in between the lanes, which is not true, and it's leaving out the important part of how things are ordered. So what happens to cars once they get there. There's a lot of things that we have to add to this. Let's start with an older analogy that everybody knows, everybody in the space knows, which is the Byzantine general's problem. You should have heard of it a lot of times. So basically it's an analogy that is used to explain the complexity of reaching a consensus in between people when you just have the chance to exchange messages in between people. The story goes like a sort of Game of Thrones things, like there is this city. The city is under siege by multiple generals. The generals know that if they attack all together the city at the same time, the chance to win are 100%, but at the same time they know that if they don't attack all of them together, if it's just one is missing, then they will lose. So they need to exchange messages in between them to decide if to attack and when to attack exactly at the same time. But at the same time, they are very afraid that there may be a traitor in between them. So somebody who joined the city, who got bribed, who got, I don't know, any other type of interest, so somebody who is lying in between them. And this analogy is very useful because it explains that in this type of situation it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to reach an agreement, meaning that every single general is not 100% sure if the messages that he has on his hands are truthful or not. So he's still in a condition where he cannot decide to move his troops toward the city at the precise day and time they agree upon, because he has no clue if the agreement is real or not, if there will be that traitor that will flip and go with the city. This is the basic analogy. Let's try to move on a few episode in this TV series thing and try to see how things evolve. Again, remember, it is not correct. It's just to give you images to think about. Imagine that there is this, in between those generals, there is this Nakamoto general, and he comes up with a great idea that works. And the idea is, we will not use messengers, we will use knights with the horses. And the idea is the knights will have to travel between one camp and the other. The travel will be extremely difficult, extremely dangerous, and will take a lot of time, and we will incentivize the knights to do this job because we will pay the first one that gets there. And by paying the first one that gets there, we have a race in between multiple knights that have to travel back and forth. And the fact that we pay them because the journey is pretty much long, but we want them to rush, because if they rush in this long journey, we know that they somehow have not been able to temper the content of the messages. So once the first knight gets to the destination camp, he hands over the messages. We can check if the seal of the messages is intact, so he did not break them. We can check that the message is coherent with the previous message, and since we leave enough time between the arrival of one knight and the arrival of this next knight, we know that things in between cannot have changed that much. So if the message of the new knight is coherent with the message of the previous knight, then he's telling the truth, and then we pay them. We pay him for his effort. So he did his proof of work and he got the price. The problem is that we need to have a journey that is dangerous, that is long, that takes a lot of time, because we need this spacing between the arrival of the different knights to be sure that they are actually carrying the good messages. And the other point is that we are wasting a lot of knights because some of those may die during the journey, and the second knight and the third knight and the third knight will get nothing out of it. So it could be even frustrating for the knights, and we are using knights for the messaging part and not for the battle, something like this. But the messaging system works, and in a way they can agree upon the fact that all of the messages they got were either provably good or provably wrong, and so they were discarded. And that is a way in which the generals can be sure that the message they exchange between each other are correct, have not been tampered with, and are absolutely true. Okay. Next episode, somebody wakes up and says, okay, we are losing a lot of knights, we are behind with the schedule, and because the process is very slow, we need to come up with something better. Why don't we just send from one camp to the other, we send crows or pigeons, and we let them flock like freely. They rush there. The advantage could be that we can use multiple pigeons, we can use multiple crows or what have you, and they are very cheap. We don't waste knights. Crows are basically birds, and they got there faster, sooner, and we can exchange message freely. It looks like a nice idea, but the point is that, but what we do if somebody traps a crow? I mean, it's very easy to trap a crow. It's very complicated to trap a knight. Knight will fight back, the crow cannot fight back. So if they capture a crow, they will get the messages, they will tamper the messages, then they will send them wrong messages or different messages on the other side, and so on. And so they have to work on this idea, and what they come up with is, okay, we have actually this problem, but we have one thing that can work our way, which is we do the same thing like before. I mean, like we had to check that the message of the new knight was coherent with the previous knight. We have to do the same thing, but in a more expanded way. Let's say the last crow that arrived has to carry messages that are linked to the previous messages, to multiple previous messages, so that we know that everything is, on track, because they are faster. Crows can get there in a flip of a second very, very easily, so they can carry multiple messages, and they can be aware of multiple previous messages to be aware of in parallel. Here is the idea: if a crow arrives and is carrying messages, there are multiple links of the messages to previous messages, and the previous messages are just the last one that we just got a few minutes ago. It must mean that the trip of that crow was straight line, was very fast, that nobody trapped it and spent extra time in getting the messages, forging the message, putting a new message on, and so on. So if the crow was very fast and references many previous messages of the last crow that arrived just before him, then we can assume that the crow is carrying good messages that were actually sent by the general. But if we see a crow that is carrying messages that are referring to older messages, like message of yesterday, too much back in the past, or if they're references a small number of messages, it seems like this crow is not in the flow with all the other crows. It's like if it's just like coming from elsewhere and doesn't actually know very much what it's talking about. So we are suspicious about the messages of this specific crow. So what do? We get the messages, said I don't know if I can trust those messages, so I put them last in the list, because what I know is that the same message will be carried probably by multiple crows. So I take the good crows, those who were fast and were referencing a lot of messages, and I analyze the messages first. And I assume that what they are telling is good, is real, because we have this time thing, which is very important. We have the fact that they were very fast, and we use them right away because they arrived right away. While we keep the messages of the slow crows, of these fishy crows, we keep them last. What happens then? If there's any messages of the fishy crow which is in contrast or doesn't exactly say the same thing of one of the crows that preceded him, we do not trust that message of the crow, and we discard the message which is in contrast with what we already know, because the lie has to be slower than the truth in this scenario. So if you are slow, you're probably lying. If you are slow and I first look at the truth, then I can see that I've been lying. If you bring a new message, we don't know how to get it. Well, we can accept your message if it's not in contrast with others, but we will accept it later. And in this way, even if we have many crows flocking around, they are carrying multiple messages at the same time, what we do is we focus on timing. I mean, the good crows are fast and they arrive very soon and they are referencing recent messages, while we assume that the bad crows, or those who have been captured and been, I don't know, sent on purpose, they arrive later. They are not so quick, because they have to work on information that has been delayed in order to be tampered with, and so on. Or they can reference little information because it's complicated to tamper information. So the more information you have to tamper, the longer it's going to take. So you either have little information or you have old information, and those two things get the crow to be fishy. Okay, so we reached a situation in which there's a lot of math going on, there is a lot of probability that we have to look at, but the idea is that the timing is essential for understanding if a crow is good or bad. So we have another element that we can look at and determine if what we are reading could be true or could be false. So this is roughly another analogy, I mean, nice story, bad time story if you want, and is trying to lay down the foundation for what we will see in the next videos, when we will talk about the Phantom protocol, Dark Knight, and other protocols that have been on top of this idea. Of course, there are a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of things that are not precisely exactly how things go, but it's just to give you a picture, a mind picture of what is going on the Kaspa protocol. And I think it's very, very interesting. It's very smart way of looking at things on a different angle and making things work in a different way. So far so good. This is where I got to. Next video I will show you the other parts of the consensus protocol of Kaspa, and up to this point I say that it's very pleasurable journey, learning a lot of things, looking at things a different way. So yeah, I keep walking, follow me. And by the way, if you think that these videos are helpful for you, remember that you will find a Kaspa address in the description, so please support. Thank you very much. See you at the next video. Bye.